Now look, before this video gets underway, Mark Scheifele, in a recent game against the Ottawa Senators, got injured. It looked like he might have had a shoulder dislocation kind of thing. It was a weird hit. He was swinging down the boards on that little curve, and he made a pass up the wing. After he made that pass, he got contacted immediately, and he went off. He left the game. That's it. Montreal fans popping into this video in the comment section, no, I am not playing your game. I'm not going to go out there and say, oh, this is redemption for Jake Evans. What do you get when you cross a mentally ill loner with a society that abandons him and treats him like trash? You get what you effing deserve. Bang! No, we're not doing that, okay? No, calm down. This video is just going over the player, not about the injury, not about him getting hurt, not about him deserving to get hurt because of what happened with Evans last year. We're talking about an article that I saw in the Winnipeg Sun, and that's where this entire conversation is going to go. Now, I'm going to be honest right here. I'm not super confident in this topic, mostly because I'm just going off the coattails of what this article in the Winnipeg Sun does indeed say. And here it is, Scott Billeck Snapshots, a thought on Mark Scheifele, Sandberg's poise, and Barron's emergence. This is, of course, on the Winnipeg Sun, so the link will be in the description if you want to go ahead and read this, but the main topic that I wanted to focus on in regards to this article is around Winnipeg Jets center Mark Scheifele. Now, before we get into this, I will spend some time to give my shout-outs to my boys. Peg City Hockey, he is the main Winnipeg guy that I follow the most here on YouTube, particularly because we went to school together. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people are familiar with that, but I sat beside this guy in grade 10 science class, in grade 12 geometry class. We had PE together, and what is it, grade 9, something like that? So anything he has to say about the Jets, I listen, big shout out to him. But when it comes to Mark Scheifele, he's been a guy that Peg City has ranted about for months. And it's kind of funny to see where things go when the Jets have a bad game and seeing, my friend's reaction to the entire ordeal. But either way, Mark Scheifele this season, if you take a look at the numbers, you will say that he's having a quote-unquote good year because he's over a point per game, he's on pace for 78 points in 75 games, and just by itself, that number is pretty extraordinary, right? However, Mark Scheifele is a minus 17 on the season. Earlier on in the year, he was at like a minus 20, and I think it got a little bit worse than that too. Long story short, Mark Scheifele has not had a great defensive year in the NHL, and I know plus-minus isn't really the best metric to judge defensive play, but the guy went out there with over a point per game on the season. He was a minus 20 at one point. How poor does your on-ice 5v5 defensive coverage have to be to have a minus 20 on the year despite being over a point per game? He was, ranked 940th out of 970 NHL players at one point. That is literally the bottom 0.5% of the NHL when it comes to plus-minus. Plus-minus is not the be-all end-all, but when you're in the bottom percentage of everybody in the league, it is somewhat noteworthy as well. And so we go over onto this article and talk about what it is that Scheifele has done this season. Again, this is written by Scott Billeck. Friday's performance by Mark Scheifele was a good reminder of how good he can be when he wants to be, regardless of the opponent. The game, a 5-4 overtime defeat to the mighty Colorado Avalanche, brought back flashes of the 2017-18 playoffs, where he bludgeoned the Minnesota Wild and Nashville Predators. Scheifele had a pair of goals and a helper in the game. The criticism of Scheifele's defensive game and his penchant to avoid contact is well placed, but it's really difficult to overlook his offensive impact. In a down year, quote-unquote, Scheifele is on the verge of his third 30-goal season, and he's a point-per-game player for a 7th straight year. There's been a lot of speculation surrounding his future in this city, but it's clear that this team would sorely miss what it is that he does on offense. Now, this is the little part that I wanted to focus on, and it's why I'm even making this video here. It seems clear to Scott that Mark Scheifele hasn't bought into Dave Lowry's system, but could a new coach serve as Scheifele's whisperer? If the Jets do move on from Lowry in the offseason, I wonder if replacing him is the first thing on the agenda. There's an entire conversation as well to happen about Paul Maurice, Dave Lowry, all the stuff going on with the coaching change. But long story short, with the Winnipeg Jets and the new systems they have in place, you have some guys that you could say are absolutely thriving and winning the fans' trust in this respect, like Pierre-Luc Dubois, for example. I've seen a ton of Pierre-Luc Dubois support. I've seen people going out there talking about Paul Stastny. Why? Because some of these guys display honest work. Pierre-Luc Dubois is a workhorse. workhorse. He goes out there and he just does what needs to be done. For Scheifele, even though he is offensively talented, even though he does score goals, even though he can turn the gears on when he wants to, there isn't that consistent, okay, look at him, he's an absolute battler. He's a tough player out there to play against. Sometimes you'll have the shifts where he really asserts himself physically and it usually ends poorly, like the Jake Evans hit. But for a good chunk of the season, you have yourselves a lot of Jets fans defining this year for Scheifele as a down year. Now, a lot of things have not gone right for the Winnipeg Jets. Their consistency on the season, their streakiness has been very noteworthy if you chronicle everything from game 1 until game whatever it is they've played right now. And the million-dollar question now is, where do the Jets go next season? On paper, this is not a bad roster. I thought the decor of Schmidt and Pionk and everybody they have would actually serve to be pretty successful, but it's been one of the bigger issues this team has had to face with consistency on D, oddly enough. You have yourselves the prime Josh Morrissey coming in here, trying his best to carry the load, but it's just not enough to have one guy doing everything. And then you have the forwards as well. Mark Scheifele is a good hockey player, but the entire question as to whether or not he's worth trading away, trying to explore a new option because whatever value the Jets could get in a Scheifele trade might be more beneficial to the team because it's spread out. And then you have this entire idea that Mark Scheifele just hasn't bought into the system that Lowry has, and all of a sudden you have questions like these that arise in this article. Is it the player or is it the coach? Do you depart with a guy that's only been with you for a little bit here, who's only here because Paul Maurice stepped down in the first place? Now, you could argue that Maurice should have gotten fired himself, but he kind of just departed the ship before that happened. It was a lot more of a, you can't fire me, I quit situation, but still, that's the conclusion that the article here on the Winnipeg Sun makes, that the Jets are undoubtedly a better team with an engaged Mark Scheifele, as was on display on Friday. They just may need the right voice on the bench to light that fire once again. Going over onto Spectre's Hockey here on April 12th, so what is that, 3 days ago, something like that? 4 days ago, my goodness, yeah, this video is being uploaded on the 16th, that's my bad. We have ourselves what Lyle Richardson, the writer here on Spectres, says about the entire Scheifele thing. The Jets have reached a critical crossroads. They were expected to be much better after a solid performance during last season's shortened season. Cheveldaev cannot make marginal changes and expect things to get better next year. A shakeup to the roster core seems likely. That could involve trading Scheifele, but he has 2 more seasons remaining on a contract with a 6.125 AAV and a 10-team no-trade clause. Perhaps hiring a coach that Scheifele would respect might get him back on track, but it wouldn't create the cap space needed to make room for younger blue liners. And so this is kind of why the entire article says, yeah, I'm happy I'm not Kevin Cheveldaev and I don't have to make these decisions. Keep Scheifele around, free up some cap space, trade away these players, try to get the young guys in here. The young guys, that's been one of the bigger problems the Jets have had to deal with as well, but that's not really this video now, isn't it? So let me know in the comments all your thoughts about the idea of Mark Scheifele buying in with this coach, whether or not you feel like he should stick around for next season, or is it coaching that you really want to focus on to try to get Mark Scheifele to go out there and do what it is that we know he is capable of doing? I don't think it would be a smart plan to go out there and plan your entire offseason over trying to find that one coach that finds that one player, that one spark that he needs, because you still have a lot of other stuff to work around with your roster, and so the question then becomes, how do you free up that money to open up more space? Furthermore, you have the entire slump that Scheifele has had all season that didn't just start under Lowry. This was also sort of a Paul Maurice thing. And when you think about Scheifele being over a point per game, yet there still is a good chunk of the fan base that's like, yeah, he's having a down year. Like, this is not Scheifele's year. It really gets you thinking, okay, when he is on his game, when he is at the best level that he is able to be at, there is just so much more added onto this team because of it, and it really depends on if you want to focus on trying to bring that out instead of focusing on other things like, okay, what could you get in a Scheifele trade? What other defensemen can you bring onto your squad if you trade this player away? So let me know in the comments all your thoughts about Mark Scheifele and this conversation about him potentially not buying into Dave Lowry and his plans. What do you think is the move for Scheifele? Trade, stay, go, whatever it is, let me know in the comments what you think. I hope you enjoyed this British 99, and bye.